What is up, everybody? Unrested here, and I am back again. There's my name up on the board, and we are covering a kind of JFaq roundup. These are kind of nice to do at the end of the week on the weekend when people have been sending me stuff for a while and I haven't been catching up on it. Like Robert Fabretti, I think I said this name right, maybe, had been sending me at least 3 articles already, which are all great articles, and I appreciate everything he has sent. But I am lazy and it takes me forever to make videos. So now I'm finally getting to them. If you have sent me stuff like Robert here and I haven't gotten to it yet, that does not mean I'm ignoring you or won't do a video on it. It means I'm probably backed up with other stuff I'm doing videos on, and then I eventually want to reach this. Let's just jump into the JFaq, Japan's frequently asked questions. I am unrested with the questions you requested. This little meme I've seen around a couple times now. It's just been sent to me by Robert here, and it says, "Before you obsess over Japan, keep in mind." And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read these 3 things that they have listed here, and why it says at the very end of this meme, it says, "Not so kawaii now, huh?" So it's someone who's very anti-Japan. Let's just find out why. They are very xenophobic. They are a very xenophobic culture. Otaku is an insult to them. Actually, it's not, and you're using otaku in the wrong way. Otaku, translated literally, means a mania for something, or a manic for something. For example, you can't just say, "I am otaku." You would have to say, what you are otaku for. So, for example, if you like the manga Gegege no Kitaro, like you would say, "I am Gegege no Kitaro no otaku." If you are a Gundam otaku, that's what you say. "I am Gundam otaku." You don't say, "I am otaku." If you said that to a Japanese person, if you said, "Oh, boku wa otaku desu," they'd say, "Nan no otaku?" And you'd have to tell them what you are crazy or manic for. There is a very famous movie in Japan called Densha no Otaku, which a otaku is the famous person in the movie for having saved a girl who was being sexually harassed by a drunken oyaji on the train. He gets the guy to stop harassing her, and they kind of fall in love after that. They start sending each other messages on 4chan, or actually, sorry, Nichan, it's Japan, Nichan. And they slowly fall in love because of that, and that's a very famous movie. Why there's been some distaste for otaku in the past. You may have heard about the Akihabara stabbings. There was an Akihabara otaku who drove a truck there, got out of the truck after he hit a bunch of people, took out a knife and just started randomly stabbing people just because he had decided he was going to try to commit suicide via police, hopefully having them shoot him to stop him from stabbing people. They did not. They arrested him instead, and now he will spend the rest of his life in jail. He happens to be an otaku. Of course, it's kind of ridiculous because it's like saying, well, now otaku is a bad name because an otaku did this. But I mean, how many salarymen have done bad stuff like sexually harassed women or sexually assaulted women, or like, you know, killed their own family because they lost their job? So no one says like, "Oh, you're such a salaryman." That's what the equivalent of it's doing, is taking a label for something and saying, now Japan thinks that's totally bad for everybody. All right, that was a very long explanation for a one sentence. And any attempts to try and imitate Japanese will be met harshly by many native Japanese. I think any race that you try to mimic would not be pleased by that. So, for example, if I tried to go to Mexico and wear a sombrero and a poncho and pretend to be Mexican when nobody there wears stuff like that or acts like that, and I'm like, "Look how Mexican I am, everybody," and tried to speak Spanish and everything, they'd be like, "This guy is retarded." And sorry, I use the word retarded. "This guy is an idiot. This guy's stupid. He's racist." I think that would happen with any culture that you would do that to. If you tried to like dress up like what you thought the indigenous original culture from like Edo era Japan wore, and showed up in Japan dressed like a samurai or in a kimono or like a ninja. I don't know. They'd just be like, "What the hell are you doing? You're stupid." All right. So I think that would be the same with any culture. Like if I showed up to Germany with like lederhosen on and wooden shoes and said, "This is how everybody dresses here. I'm German now," they would be like, "Get the hell out of here, you idiot." A lot of Japanese people hate foreigners even being in their country. I would like to hear some statistics on that, or where you get that source from. That's just the most like nebulous sentence ever. A lot Like what? Like the whole country? Because that's not true. 50% of the country? That's probably not true. I mean, why would they be hosting the 2020 Olympics if that was true? Let alone trying to act like them. Anime is not a lesson on Japanese culture and should not be substitute for that. I mean, yeah, no kidding. Anime is not a lesson for Japanese culture or a substitute for that. I think most of the people who watch anime understand that. That would be like saying, okay, someone in Japan watches a Garfield cartoon and says, well, that's America. Everybody's a cat that eats lasagna. Now I know about America. Or they watch, I don't know, what's a modern day cartoon now. I don't really watch cartoons much in America, American cartoons too much anymore. I don't know if they watch like the new rendition of He-Man Masters of the Universe. They're not going to be like, oh, so everybody fucking grabs a sword and turns into He-Man and has a pet tiger that becomes brave now. I've learned about America. Like that's the dumbest thing. I mean, what a dumb comparison. Does anybody seriously watch the cartoons of a country and think they have learned a lesson on the culture of the country? I mean, unless the cartoon itself is literally like historic, like Grave of the Fireflies, where it teaches you about post World War II Japan and how rough it was, like a Miyazaki film where it gets into the history of Japan. You could slightly take bits and pieces from that, but no one watches that whole cartoon and says, well, now I know Japan, I can go there and I know everything that's gonna happen. Like many Asian countries, Japan takes education very seriously. This is true. Schools are in no way like anime. Yeah, no kidding. None of the schools in our cartoons are like our schools in America. A high school student in Japan can spend their entire day on school. Yep. And other activities. But they do that. This guy, I don't know who wrote this, but they probably haven't watched any anime. I mean, if you watch Usagi Drop or K-On!, they spend their whole time in the school in the anime. So now they're contradicting themselves because those anime actually do display the way Japanese high schools are. Although I think K-On! Might be junior high school, right? It also attributes to Japan's high suicide rate. Actually, bullying is one of the things. And actually, Japan's high suicide rate. You would like to see, you know what? I would like them to mention where they're ranked in the world, because Japan is only ranked 11th. If you want to take a look at some very, very high suicide rates, you want to look at like Belarus or the Baltic states. That's where suicide is actually very high. And guess what? Korea is even higher than Japan. So it makes high schools in the West seem like child's play. Well, guess what? High schools in the West are child's play compared to Japan, Korea, and pretty much almost every Asian country, because our education is way, 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 way worse. You might want to look up some literacy rates. You might want to look up some study rates. You might want to look up comprehension tests that have spanned all of Europe and Asia and stuff. Europe beats us. Asia beats us as far as America goes. You might want to look at some statistics for that. So maybe what they're doing is working. I'm not saying it's the best way, but what they're doing is working. They definitely know math better than we do. Speaking of schools, they are inclined to deny all of their war crimes in World War II. I'm gonna say yes and no to this one. From what I've read in their textbooks, and I have taught in Japanese junior high schools and elementary schools, and I've talked to my wife about it when she's gone to those schools. She's gone to all of them, of course. She's an adult. They breeze over it very quickly. But is America not guilty of the same? Is there like a long, drawn-out section of the American textbooks? It's like, so then we nuked Japan, and we radiated the skins and bodies of innocent women and children to the point that some of them melted to the sides of trees. Their shadows were burnt into the ground. Their skin was flayed and falling off their bodies. When they took their shoes and clothes off, it peeled with the clothes that they were taking. We don't describe stuff like, we're just like, and we ended World War II by dropping some atomic bombs. Anyway, we won. We beat Germany because they were really bad guys during that time. And, Japan too, they were, so we dropped the bombs on them. But, it's cool now. We're cool with Japan now. Everything's back to normal. We breeze over it too in our textbooks. You know what you're going to find across the board, almost around the world? The people who write the history books on war always make it sound like their side did the least amount of harsh stuff, and also that they won. Or they did their best to win, or they almost won, or they were in the lead until Nantoka. I mean, come on, man. Like, you're literally making these giant blanket statements that cover a very wide girth of the world in general. Okay, speaking of school, okay, we did it, including the Nanking massacre, which they mention, but again breeze over. Attacks on Korea, they mention it, but again they breeze over it, and the POW camps. Which, oh, guess who also denies that we had concentration camps? America. Guess how many Japanese we put in there? Every single Japanese person living in America during World War II, we made concentration camps for them. Now, mind you, we didn't butcher and kill them left and right like Auschwitz, but we made them grab 2 trash bags. All they were allowed to like take from their house was 2 trash bags worth of family materials, and then they got moved into these like camps where they were living in like log cabins, and a lot of them died there because the conditions were not that great. This denial has led to Japan being hated by China and Korea. Well, duh. There's more than just that behind it, dude. Yeah, and also, okay, in the way Japan handles some of this shit, they're very childish with it. Um, they fight back and forth, but China and Korea handle it like little children too. So it's like 3 kids in a sandbox fighting over one toy. And also, I noticed they failed to mention the fact that China's trying to claim one of Japan's islands, and Japan says it's their island, and they're fighting back and forth over and over again about this. Many people in Japan want the country to return to imperialist rule. Bullshit. Only the most Uyoku motherfuckers are the ones that want to turn that back to that. Like, the most extreme right-wing nationalists. That's like saying everybody in America wants us to be super fundamentalist, radical Christian, and kill everyone who's not whatever their Christian religion is. I mean, that those people exist. Yeah, they're crazy and they live in America, but not everybody is that person, which could lead to these atrocities again. Not so kawaii now, huh? Oh, fuck you. You don't know what you're talking about, dude. Somebody who just, I guess, I'm, you know what? It's probably like a super right-wing Chinese or Korean wrote that. Their English was good if they did, so good for them. Although Korea and China both speak English way better than Japan. Sorry, Japan. True. Very true. All right, let's see what else Robert had here. This one was an interesting one. Japan is trying to destroy tattoos. Now, again, these are just articles he's sending me. Robert is not agreeing with any of this, so don't try and find this guy and be like, Japan, okay? Like, he's just sending me the articles for video stuff. Thank you. Don't attack this guy. I've seen this happen before. That's the only reason I make this disclaimer is someone sends me an article. I say the article they sent me. Everybody finds a person and attacks them because they think these are the sentiments of the person, and they are not. They're just the article they are sending me. Okay, it says, Japan is trying to destroy tattoos. This is a Kotaku article. And the interesting thing is the tattoo shop I believe they have featured in the photos is Chopsticks Tattoo, where I actually got my whole sleeve done. So I'm kind of honored. Right now, there are some people in Japan who appear to be doing their best to kill off tattoos. This guy is one of the many who wants to stop that. I guess the guy in the picture? They should put a name in there that's kind of unprofessional. For the past 2 years, I've been working on a Japanese tattoo book. It's about the symbols and motifs found in irezumi, which is one of the Japanese words for tattoos. The designs are complex and fascinating and encompass so much of the country's visual tradition as well as its culture. But some of the artists I've interviewed and whose work the book features have either been picked up by the police, had their studios closed, or have left the country. Much of the recent tattoo crackdown appears to be concentrated in Osaka, where there is a lot of tattoos, and mind you, one of the largest groups of Yakuza live. And they've just recently split off into 5 splinter groups, and they are warring with each other, including everyone associated with them is warring with each other, and some of those people associated with them are tattoo artists. But usually they tend to be the teibori, which means like the tap, 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 tap artists. They're very old school, and they have a lot of motifs that are very original to the designs of the clans of these different Yakuza groups. So, I mean, there might be more behind that than what this person is getting into. So anyway, sorry. Much of the recent tattoo crackdown appears to be concentrated in Osaka, where the prefectural government has increasingly become antagonistic towards tattoos. Its waves are being felt in the tattoo community across the country. Tattooing was legalized in Japan after World War II. Prior to that, it had been banned in the late 19th century as the country tried to modernize and shed cultural trappings that it either thought Westerners would find primitive and or once long hoped to eradicate. During the Prohibition, tattoos were driven completely underground. However, during the past few decades, tattooing became increasingly open when compared to how things were in the past. Now, there is a wide variety of shops and tattooers. Actually, there really isn't in comparison to other countries, catering to a wide array of tastes, styles, and clients. You can get classic designs or fun, poppy creations. These days, it's really your choice. In 2001, however, 2001, we're talking over 14 years ago, the Ministry of Health, Labor, and Welfare instituted a directive stating that only licensed healthcare providers could pierce the skin. Mind you do not need to have a license to tattoo in Japan. With a needle and insert ink. It was up to the authorities in each prefecture to enforce this. Originally, the directive wasn't to go after tattooers, but permanent makeup cosmetic tattooing artists, after various incidents and problems were happening at that time. And this didn't impact tattooers until recently, because certain authorities are now applying the medical practitioner's law to them in earnest. This last April, Osaka's biggest tattoo convention was suddenly canceled a week before it was to be held. Some after several tattoo studios in Osaka were apparently raided. And in August, NHK, that's the equivalent to NPR, BBS, BBC, whatever, reported 5 tattooers were arrested for tattooing 11 people without a physician's license. Yes, it actually said that tattooers were arrested because they were not doctors. That is ridiculous. If that really happened, that's super stupid. Those don't appear to be isolated arrests, as last month, Nikon Sports reported that 2 more tattooers were arrested in Nagoya for violating the medical practitioner's law. In 21st century Japan, tattooers getting arrested like this is unprecedented. It's all rather baffling, to be honest. First, tattooers in Japan obviously come from a completely different tradition from those performing cosmetic tattooing, which is very true, especially if they're teibori artists, okay? Teibori artists are not people who do makeup tattooing. Honestly, I don't know much about makeup tattooing. I know about actual tattooing as, well, here, I'll just pick up the whole thing. I actually have a ton of my own machines. God, don't come arrest me, Osaka Prefecture. I dabble in tattooing myself, but I don't really know anything about if the makeup tattoo gun is the same as the tattoo gun we use to make actual art on skin. I would imagine it would have to be somewhat the same, but wouldn't it have to have a lighter stroke, or like maybe, maybe it's like hits per second are like way less so that it gives more of a shaded, or maybe they use like a more spread out needle, like a big, never mind. I'm getting esoteric. The training is different, the designs are different, and the purpose is different. Duh! Then tattoos are not a medical procedure. They're an art form and or craft. Just as tattooers could not do a doctor's job, a doctor could not do a tattooer's job. Very good point. I like the point that this article writer made. And for the authorities to imply such seems to show a gross misunderstanding of both professions. Oh, I can assure you, the people doing these kind of crackdowns don't know shit about tattoos. The government hasn't made things easier for tattooers or their clients. For that matter, Japan doesn't regulate the tattoo industry, which it really should. Actually, it really should, yeah. And doesn't issue certificates or licenses, which it should. Yes, it should. Things do need to change. Oh my god, this goes on and on and on and on and on and on. No. Okay. Yesterday, the Asahi News, one of Japan's biggest newspapers, reported how one 27-year-old Osaka tattooer who goes by the name Taiki was picked up for allegedly violating the medical practitioner's law. Asahi reports how Taiki works in a clean, hygienic environment, how he doesn't tattoo yakuza, and most of his clients get tattoos to express their sense of style. These days, this is not uncommon. Instead of paying his 300,000 yen, the equivalent to $2,445 as of me reading this video, fine, Taiki is taking this fight into the Japanese courts, posing the question as to whether or not his job is a crime. The month procedures begin for a public trial. Taiki has created a Facebook called Saving Tattooing in Japan, hoping to garner support for his cause. If this goes to trial, and if courts rule that yes, Taiki broke the law, this would be a landmark case. In turn, all tattooers in Japan would be breaking the law. There would be no ambiguity about the profession. The gray area would be gone. I don't think it would erase tattoos from Japan. The form has previously survived Prohibition and World War, so it would continue to exist in some manner. But I don't think such a ruling would cause many of the country's best tattooers to go abroad and drive the ones who stay further underground even further underground. The resulting environment would become far less safe for clients. It's the worst case scenario, really. Often when you talk to tattooers in Japan, they like to point out how in the past, kabuki wasn't held in the same high esteem that it was today. The country has elevated kabuki to a venerated Japanese art. Its actors appear in commercials and are national treasures. Kabuki is respected. The hope is that the same things will one day happen for tattoos. Whew. Yeah, that sucks, man. I have a friend who just opened a shop here too. That would really screw him over. I really hope that doesn't happen. I mean, I do hope there is a little more regulation because I have seen some pretty junky shops, but for the most part, they are few and far between. They are mostly hygienic because, let's be honest, the first time anyone comes back from a shop with some kind of scabby tattoo, then, all their friends are going to be like, well, never going to go there. That's a bad idea. So it pays to be safe. It pays to be hygienic. Most of the artists I know, at the very least, have an autoclave, which, if you don't know what that is, it's medical equipment for, how do I best describe it? It's usually used by dentists and doctors to clean their metal instruments. It not only covers them in hot water, shoots steam and hot water all over the instruments, it usually shakes and vibrates them so that it can break open the shells of viruses that are covered by like kind of these endoplasmic reticulums. I'm getting too scientific for, I don't even know what I'm talking about. Anyway, 21 minutes. That's pretty good for a weekend video. Guys, what did you think about these two articles? I want to hear your feedback on tattoos and about your feedback, especially on the first article. I thought that was very interesting. Someone who very much so obviously hates Japan and doesn't know, has some very strange observations as far as, if you watch the cartoons from a country, you're not actually learning about that country's culture. Yeah, no kidding. How do you guys feel about some of the statements that were made in that in that meme or article, or I don't know what you would call it? How do you feel about it? Let me know. Until next time, I'm Unrested with the questions you requested. This is JFaq, Japan's frequently asked questions. Have a good weekend.